welcome to Shannonville Motorsport Park for race number 2 of the 1990 Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. Hello everyone, I'm Brendan Connor and welcome to Shannonville Motorsport Park. We're here for race number 2 in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series, and with me to help bring you the action, as always, my colleague Pat Gonzalez. And Pat, this race should be very interesting because the Shannonville track is arguably the most technical we're going to see all year.
Well, it really is, Brendan. You know, every one of the 15 corners on this circuit is just a little bit different. The track is very, very flat, unlike circuits like Mosport and Mont Tremblant that have changes in elevation and have blind turns. But the track here at Shannonville is very special as well because there's lots of runoff room in all of the corners, so if you do make a mistake, you're not going to bang up that race car. The other nice thing about this circuit is that for the race fans who sit up in the grandstands, you can see about 80 or 90% of the racetrack. And you know, a few years ago when Raymond David John Nelson and Richard Spinard got together to design the present layout here, they kept all of those things in mind, and it really is a fine racing facility, and we should be in for a tremendous race here today.
All right, and the mix of turns and straights that those gentlemen came up with when they were designing the Shannonville Motorsport Park looks something like this. There were 15 turns, each one requiring steady braking, lots of steering input, and then smooth acceleration to the next turn. Some of the drivers get on and off the power in the turns, trying to induce a level of oversteer or understeer to get them through the corner.
Turn 6 at Shannonville Motorsport Park is a double apex left-hander, and it will be a very popular passing area as drivers stay wide, missing the second clipping point, but then scooting through and inside for turn number 7. The very slow hairpin at the top of the course is a critical turn. The fastest laps are made by being slow enough to exit this right-hander without any understeer or wheel spin with a flat-out run down the back straight.
Then there's a short squirt through a fast right-left chicane before it's hard on the brakes and a hard left at the corner they call Allen's Corner, then smooth acceleration through the last turn to lead on to pit straight for another lap. Now overall, these tough turning combinations mean that horsepower and guts aren't going to mean as much as driving skill and precision. Now here's Pat with a look at how we're going to bring you some of the close-up racing action we expect to see here today.
Many of the cars in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series have Sony Handycams installed. This model, an F35, has been placed in the number 35 car of Ron Fellows. The camera is bolted into an aluminum bracket and then further bolted to the roll cage just in back of the right shoulder of the driver. It's battery operated, so it won't affect the electronics in the Mackenzie Porsche 944 Turbo. Ron Fellows will start on the back row for the race here at Shannonville, having missed the qualifying session because of his racing commitments in the Trans Am Series in the United States. Ron proved in round 1 at Mosport that he is a front runner, and he knows the Shannonville track very well, having taught at the Spinard David Racing School. So with Fellows starting in the back and looking for a charge to the front, the pictures from the Sony Handycam should be very interesting.
Well, thank you, Pat. And as our cameras are getting set up, the cars are starting to form in the pre-race grid area here at Shannonville Motorsport Park. We're almost set for the start of race number 2 in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Shannonville Motorsport Park in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. I'm Brendan Connor, and we are ready now for the start of race number 2 in the 1990 Canadian Championship for these turbocharged 944 Porsches. They're going out onto the track now for their pace lap, so let's go up to Pat Gonzalez for a look over the starting grid.
Row 1 is David Tennyson. David has always been quick in qualifying, but seems to suffer during the race. His IMSA experience this season should help, but right beside him for the start will be Richard Spinard. Richard will be a threat right from the green flag. Bill Adam heads row number 2. Adam took the win in race 1, and he is still riding that high. Rookie David Empringham starts 4th. He has a lot of racing experience here at Shannonville. Jacques Liliev will be on the inside of row 3. Jacques is fast becoming star material in the series. Then it's Ludwig Heimrath. He's as tough as they come in road racing.
All right, Pat, here's the rest of the grid then. Uli Bieri, Normand Boye on row 4. Behind them, Richard Fernandez and Raymond David. Rick By and John Graham in 6. David King, Fernando Arcilla in 7. Griesbach and Campbell in 8. And watch for Ron Fellows starting last after not being able to qualify. Here we go.
The green flag is out. Spinard and Tennyson side by side into turn 1. Spinard to the outside, and Tennyson will come through into the lead. So Richard Spinard being pushed back into that second place position. Tennyson leads him up into turn number 2. Some tire smoke there from David Tennyson as he got hard on the brakes at the top of the straightaway. but it's Spinard in that second place position, just a couple of car lengths right there. Rick By coming up through the field. Rick By to the inside, picking up a position, and now we can see from the rear-mounted camera of Rick By as he tries to move up through the field.
Here's Ron Fellows. We're on board with, whoa, Ron Fellows almost hits 44 John Graham and slows down, stays in shape though. He's inside David King and looking to move into 12th already. Good driving by Ron Fellows early.
Ron Fellows on the charge. There's Richard Spinard putting a couple of wheels off the racetrack as he tries to chase down the leader, David Tennyson. Now you're on board with Bill Adam, who runs back into third place position. Tennyson really sliding that car all over the racetrack as he has got his foot into it early. David Tennyson, your leader. Spinard in the Motormaster Downtown Fine Cars Porsche runs in the second place position. Then it is Bill Adam. There is Adam, your third place driver, now feeling the pressure from David Empringham in car number 2. A fine qualifying effort by the rookie David Empringham as they come out of the hairpin and work the back straightaway.
Now you have the view from inside the McCutcheon Process Graphics Porsche as Ron Fellows driving, and Ron Fellows driving aggressively as always. Here he's trying to catch John Graham, pulls out, but Graham manages to hold him off, but evidence of some aggressive driving by Ron Fellows in a hurry, Pat, to do some catching up early.
The field off the end of the back straightaway into turn 11, still tightly bunched. Some great racing all the way through the top 10. There's Rick By and Raymond David, and now you're with Rick By as he tries to chase down Raymond David for that 10th place position. Here's that run through the chicane. David off the racetrack, out onto the grass as he got a wheel up on the curbing, coming into Allen's corner, and there is Raymond David. He has dropped back in the 11th place position. Rick By moves up into the 10th place spot. The leaders on the front straightaway. Tennyson in the Denon Porsche, followed by Spinard in the red and white Motormaster Downtown Fine Cars Porsche. Bill Adam in car number 3 runs in third, and there is Raymond David, number 41. He has retaken that 10th place spot and again puts a couple of wheels off the racetrack. They go through a cloud of dust. That's Richard Fernandez, who put a couple of wheels off the racetrack.
Some of these guys having some trouble early on, it looks like, Pat, as nobody wants to give any ground, and everybody's racing pretty hard in the early laps. Here's a race for 6th place as Liliev tries to make a move on Uli Bieri. Intense racing, and it's wearing down the good rubber. I bet that'll be a factor later on.
Well, it is extremely hot here at Shannonville. There you can see Bill Adam muscling the steering wheel as he tries to chase down Tennyson and Spinard. But the temperature here approaching 95 degrees Fahrenheit. There's the battle for third between Adam, number 3, and Empringham. Then it is Heimrath in 5th, and now number 4. That is Jacques Liliev, who has taken over that 6th place position, dropping Uli Bieri back to 7th. They run on the back straightaway at Shannonville. Tennyson, your leader. Spinard in 2nd. Then a bit of a gap back to Bill Adam. Here is Bieri, number 40, pulling to the inside of Liliev. And Uli Bieri will retake that 6th place position. And these two drivers are having a war for that 6th place spot. Liliev now right on the rear bumper of Bieri as they come through the chicane. They battle all the way into Allen's corner. On the front straightaway, Tennyson in that blue Denon Audio Porsche, followed by Spinard.
Well, we've got racing for every position now. Fellows has gotten past Graham, is up to 11th. By is back in 13th. Now you're looking at rookie Fernando Arcilla in the black car chasing David King. King's able to hold him off, though, over Allen's corner and gets back to the position.
And here's Rick By, who's clearly having a problem in his Pioneer Audio Porsche. He seems to be slowing down, just coasting through the turns.
Well, Pat, that commercial motorsports team has had its trouble this season. I got a chance to talk to Rick By earlier and asked him about his car.
Well, our first race, we in practice, the car only ran 10 minutes, and the camshaft broke in the car. And coming off the track today, it seemed flat on power, but you know, I attributed it to the heat. But come in, it was making a rapping noise again, and a noise out the exhaust. So I think we have a lifter problem or a valve problem.
Now the problem with these guys are having is not with their cars, it's keeping up with each other. Here's some of the action of turn 6, and look at all that sliding, Pat.
There is Ludwig Heimrath in 5th, followed by this battle for 6th, side by side. 40 Uli Bieri, number 4, Jacques Liliev have been just going at it for the 6th place position. They'll be joined by that blue number 5 car of Norman Boye. They're still side by side. Liliev will grab the position, but Bieri and Liliev are having a tremendous race as they go through the S's. The leader, David Tennyson, followed by Richard Spinard and Bill Adam.
All right, here's the rest of your leaderboard then. Empringham coming in 4th spot. Ludwig Heimrath is in 5th. Liliev in 6th. It's Bieri, and then Boye, Fellows, and Raymond David rounding out the top 10.
That is a great run by Ron Fellows up into the 9th place position. Fellows racing in the Trans Am event through the streets of Detroit yesterday and had to take a flight from Detroit into Toronto and then drive to Shannonville to start the car on the back road. We've got a spin coming on the back straightaway. That is Doug Griesbach.
Well, they may have stalled that car, Pat. We'll find out in a moment when we return from Shannonville. This is Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Racing on CBC. I'm Brendan Connor with Pat Gonzalez, and welcome back. We're midway through race number 2 in our series, coming from Shannonville Motorsport Park.
You're looking at the 5th place driver, Ludwig Heimrath, who is coming under pressure from Jacques Liliev, who pulls up alongside, and Liliev will move that United Auto Parts Porsche into the 5th place position, and there's Norman Boyer. He puts a couple of wheels off the racetrack in a big cloud of dust. And now you're on board with Ron Fellows, who's running in the 9th place position. He comes up now to challenge the 40 car of Uli Bieri. There is Fellows as they come out of the hairpin now, about to go on the back straightaway, and Bieri's Porsche showing an advantage here as he pulls away from Ron Fellows, and there you can see the frustration. Ron Fellows just does not have the horsepower.
Pat, moments ago, Len Campbell went careening off the back straight, and the dust sure went flying, and Len learned, I guess, that these runoff areas at Shannonville aren't completely flat. Now he's in the pits, and the officials are determining if the Action Rentals Porsche is going to be able to continue.
Here is Ron Fellows, who continues his charge up through the field. He is working on the 7th place driver. That is the 40 car of Uli Bieri. Ron Fellows now up into the 8th place position, and Fellows goes through on the inside to take over that 7th place position. Now he has his sight set on Ludwig Heimrath, who runs up in the 6th place position. So a great run by Ron Fellows.
And here we are in the pits again, and it looks as if Len Campbell is going to continue. Minus a front bumper, he will be back in the race, despite the fact he's lost a couple of laps.
Part of the crowd on hand here at Shannonville, looking at a great battle for the lead. They come through Allen's corner and into turn 15 on the front straightaway. Tennyson by just a couple of car lengths. Then a bit of a gap back to Bill Adam, who continues to run in the 3rd place position. But this has strictly been a 2-driver race up front. Tennyson, who qualified on the pole. Spinard has been the only driver to stay with him.
Well, Pat, certainly the good driving up front, but what about the effort so far of Ron Fellows, who is now pressuring Ludwig Heimrath here for 6th place. Don't forget, Ron Fellows started at the back of the grid, unable to qualify his car yesterday.
The leader, David Tennyson, trying to hold off a hard-charging Richard Spinard. Tennyson, of course, delighted about his pole qualifying run yesterday, but right now Spinard trying to take the lead as Spinard is right there to within a couple of car lengths. He got the wheels up on the speed curbing. That'll cost him about another car length, and now you're on board with Ron Fellows as he tries to chase down Ludwig Heimrath in the number 7 car, and there you can see Heimrath just pulling away on the straightaway. Now as they go into turn 1, Ron Fellows will close it back up under braking. Fellows doesn't have the horsepower to pass on the straight. He'll have to do it under braking, and there goes Fellows through on the inside. He will pick up the position. Ron Fellows all the way up into the 6th place spot, and what a charge he has had from the back row.
Well, it looks to me, Pat, as if Rick Bye has maybe had enough, put up his hand. That is a signal to the other drivers that he's slowing and will go into pit lane. He's been falling back steadily in the race. I guess the setup not right today, and he doesn't want to do any more damage to the car. So it appears that Rick Bye is either in for a little bit of a look over by the crew, or maybe even out of the race. We'll have to watch.
Rick brings the car to a stop beside his pit. That is crew chief Ted Bye as they have a discussion, but Rick's taking off the gloves. It looks like they will call it a day. Rick Bye will not take the checkered flag here in round number 2. You're with the leader, David Tennyson, as Spinard continues to chase.
Well, Pat, before the race, I was talking to David Tennyson, and he told me he wasn't going to be pressured from behind in this one, as you look at his view on board, and in fact, he was very clear about his strategy.
I'm going to try to go right away. I'm going to go very, very hard for 5 or 6 laps, and then relative to the amount of area that I've pulled on Spinard or Adam, then I'll slowly start backing off and sort of set into a pace, because the tires are going to be really they're going to be a real factor in this race. The tires are going to be a very big factor.
So far, David Tennyson has not been able to pull much of a lead on Richard Spinard, who dives in on the inside. Spinard and Tennyson side by side through turn 11, and Tennyson puts a couple of wheels off into the dirt and Spinard will take the lead as they go through the chicane. Richard Spinard has finally been able to get around David Tennyson into Allen's corner. Spinard just about sideways. Tennyson will retake the lead up to the outside, but here comes Richard Spinard. He will go back out in front. Bill Adam is closed right up as well, and the three drivers across the start-finish line. It is Spinard, your leader. Tennyson now back in second, and Bill Adam runs in the third place spot. But what a move by Richard Spinard to take the lead away from David Tennyson. Bill Adam is right there in third.
Well, we show you that again, Pat, from Bill Adams' view behind those two. He had a good view of all the action. You see at the end of the straight, Spinard goes inside, Tennyson forced wide, maybe even got a little bump from Richard. Richard goes through, but under braking after the chicane here, you watch as Richard stayed a little wide and the back end came out, and Tennyson went through on the inside, looking to surge ahead again, but Spinard was able to keep the inside line, and the last turn he amazingly held on to the position. Interesting piece of driving there, Pat.
Great bit of driving by Richard Spinard as he continues to lead now. They're on the back straightaway. Here comes Bill Adam to the inside, and he will take over the second place spot. David Tennyson may have used up his tires early in setting that very, very fast pace, and now he's back in third and trails Bill Adam, but it's Richard Spinard who's opened up a few car lengths on the new second place driver Bill Adam in the Toshiba Porsche. Then it is Tennyson in that blue number 19 Denon Porsche as they come on the front straightaway, and this is reminiscent of the three-driver battle we had at Mosport during round one.
And of course, Pat, Bill Adam won that race number one at Mosport, and he says this is going to be his year. He's going to take a different attitude toward racing this year in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup, certainly different from last year.
I played a bit too much of a waiting game, and I tried to drive and conserve my tires and take runs at the end of the race. And I think that's why a lot of the races were very close in the final few laps, and I even squeaked out that one win over Richard at Mont Tremblant. But I just waited too long, and this year I decided not to wait, that whatever they do, I'm going to try and do the same thing, only maybe do it a little bit smoother so that my tires are going to last just a fraction longer. And usually that's all it takes, is just a little tiny advantage in these cars.
Right now, Ludwig Heimrath with a tiny advantage as he holds out of the sixth place position, but right behind the 40 car of Uli Bieri, and then Norman Boye. Here are the leaders on the front straightaway. Spinard by just a few car lengths on Bill Adam. Then it is Tennyson in third. Here comes Empringham diving in on the inside, and Empringham will muscle his way through into third.
Well, that Denon car has dropped back to fourth spot now. David Tennyson having some trouble, obviously, and Tennyson's crew advises us that he has actually smoke coming into the cockpit. They want him to continue, but it's clear that he just can't keep up with the leaders anymore.
You're on board with Ron Fellows as he chases down David Tennyson in that Denon Porsche, and you can see that Fellows is closing quickly, and obviously David Tennyson, who may have used up the tires early, also having a problem with smoke now coming into the driver's compartment, and he'll have a problem maintaining his sharp concentration.
There's a look at some of the crowd enjoying the action here at Shannonville today. But look out, Pat, we've got action in turn 12. David King trying for Richard Fernandez, and Fernandez spun right out, and King went through. It's clear that all of these drivers, I guess, feeling the heat a little bit today as Fernandez gets it fired up, and he's back out on the track after the spin.
Well, there's some great personal battles going on a little bit further back. Fernandez fortunate that he was able to continue and just lose the one position. Here's the battle now for the fourth place position. Ron Fellows all over David Tennyson. He moves to the inside, and Ron Fellows has come all the way up into that fourth place position. So Tennyson continues to fade after running up the front through the first half of the race. Obviously, the tires may have gone away a little bit, and the smoke in the driver's compartment obviously affecting his performance.
All right, let's have a look at the leaderboard as it stands now. Richard Spinard out in front, of course. Bill Adam and David Empringham. Ron Fellows with that great pass into fourth. David Tennyson fading steadily, and now into fifth spot. Jacques Liliev, Uli Bieri, Ludwig Heimrath in the next three spots, and Norman Boye and Raymond David filling out the top 10 at this point.
We look at the fight for third off the end of the back straightaway here at Shannonville. The 35 car of Ron Fellows closing on David Empringham for that third place position. And Fellows really has had a marvelous drive here in that Porsche.
He's showing his knowledge of this track, Pat, and it's interesting to know right now that Richard Spinard, David Empringham, and Ron Fellows, currently running 1, 3, and 4 in our race, have all been race instructors at one time or another here at Shannonville.
We look at the fight for fifth. Jacques Liliev on the inside of David Tennyson, who had his hand up. Tennyson obviously struggling. He's all the way back in sixth.
You're watching Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Racing on CBC, and we'll be back with the closing laps from Shannonville right after this.
Welcome back to Shannonville. Bill Adam has been pushed to fourth behind David Empringham and Ron Fellows.
Pat, now we're on board with Ludwig Heimrath, who continues to have some trouble. He's dropped back further in the pack now after running as high as fifth in this race. Seems to be kind of tiptoeing compared to his earlier action in the race. And of course, this will be a disappointment for him, as was the case in race number 1 at Mosport, where he had a fire on the pace lap and couldn't even get started to be involved there.
Your leader, Richard Spinard, coming through Allen's corner. The last lap board will be out now for Spinard as he comes on the front straightaway. There you can see the gap back to Empringham, the new second-place driver. Then Ron Fellows in third. Here's Jacques Liliev. He has moved up to fourth now. Bill Adam continues to fade. He's all the way back in fifth.
And there you see the last lap board being hung out for all the drivers. And now you're on board with David Tennyson, the pole sitter and early leader, who's been fighting off fumes inside his car. Looks as if he may hang on for 6th place at best. Pat?
Richard Spinard, your leader, followed by David Empringham. Then it is Ron Fellows in car number 35. Ron Fellows, who was third at Mosport during round number 1, trying to make it one better here at Shannonville, but he'll have to get around Empringham. Richard Spinard sliding it through turn number 9 of the S's into the hairpin now for the final time, and Ron Fellows is close right up on Empringham as they go on the back straightaway. Empringham trying to hold off Fellows on this last lap, and oh, there is Bill Adam. It looks like the left rear suspension is broken on the car. Bill Adam has had to park it in the S's. Richard Spinard off the end of the back straightaway, followed by Empringham, then Ron Fellows, and it looked as though Empringham was able to pull away on Ron Fellows going down the back straightaway. Through the chicane now for the final time. It looks like the positions may be set. Richard Spinard through Allen's corner, then it is Empringham, followed by Ron Fellows, who looks like he will pick up yet another third-place finish. The drivers coming on the front straightaway. The checkered flag is out. The crews waving to their drivers as the checkered flag has fallen. Richard Spinard has won round number 2 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series.
Well, Pat Spinard finishing first in Shannonville, his backyard. Empringham also used to this track, but what a lot of ground made up by Ron Fellows to finish third.
Oh, there's David Tennyson crawling out of his den in Porsche, obviously exhausted. David showing a lot of courage to stay out there on the racetrack with the fumes coming into the driver's compartment. He will be credited with a 5th place finish.
All right, Pat, here are the official results. Richard Spinard, last year's overall champ, first today, followed by Empringham and Ron Fellows, Jacques Liliev and David Tennyson in 4 and 5.
Rounding out the rest of the top 10, Uli Bieri in 6th, Norman Boye, followed by Ludwig Heimrath with his first points of the series, Raymond David and John Graham.
Our 2nd place finisher today, David Empringham, when the others ran away with it at the beginning and we saw Tennyson and Spinard stretching out. Did you think you'd be in there when at the close?
At the beginning, I didn't think I'd be in the top 3, but then it was pretty obvious that the track was so slippery and the tires were going to go off, and luckily I drove fairly smoothly and capitalized on some of the other guys' misfortunes. I think
there's one driver with plenty of misfortune, Bill Adam, checking over his broken suspension, and here's David Tennyson under doctor's care. We understand he will be okay after suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning. So Richard Spinard has won round number 2 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series here at Shannonville Motorsport Park in a race that saw some tremendous driving from Ron Fellows, coming from 17th on the grid to finish in 3rd. And Brendan, I made a quick calculation there. The point standings are just 7 points separating the top 5 drivers in the series.
Big logjam as we haste ahead to race number 3. That'll be from Mont Tremblant. We'll say so long from now from Shannonville Motorsport Park. Race number 2 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series, won today by Richard Spinard. For Pat Gonzalez, I'm Brendan Connor. Good afternoon.